Hey guys, this is Simon with Caddis Fly Shop, an Oregon fly fishing blog, and I have been waiting to share the Scud with you guys for I think 2 years now, and I just haven't gotten around to it. Other flies have popped up and just gotten busy, but it's that time of year where I'm going to take this Scud to some lakes / spring creeks, and it has kind of evolved over the years, and this is its best form so far, so maybe it's better that I didn't release it right away to you guys, but I fish Scuds a lot in little spring creeks under an indicator and do like a tiny little Scud strip with them, and they work really good. I also fish Scuds in the spring creeks of the Midwest in the driftless area, and they work really great. I don't do a ton of stillwater, but I have fished Scud on some of the high lakes, and they do work really good. The fish will cruise near weed beds and pick off Scuds as they get too far away, and the same thing also happens in the spring creeks. Unfortunately, Scuds in quick moving rivers, they can't really live in water that quick, so we don't really have them as much like on the Mackenzie or the Willamette. Certain places like in, I think, Colorado, they'll have Scuds in their tailwater, so it gets shot out of the lakes. We don't really have that. But either way, there are uses for this in some of the spring creeks as well as the lakes in our state, but all around the rest of the world, people fish Scuds all the time. So I fish them a lot, and I'm going to tie for you my favorite Scud, and I do it in 2 different colors, and I'll show you when we do the closer look the other color I like to tie it in. So taking a closer look at this fly, it's really easy. You can tie it with a bead or without a bead, or with lead or without lead. This one is just unweighted for ease of tying, and I like to have a couple of each type also. I like to have ones that have a little hidden tungsten bead in here, and I also do like to have ones that have just a strip of lead. I like to fish these in tandem with another nymph with a bead anyways, so a lot of times I go with less weight for a Scud. That way it can kind of float and do its thing and look very natural as you strip it. But this just uses the UV2 Scud dub from Hairline. For the most part, it has a little bit of, I do it in olive, I also do it in gray, and this orange spot here is a parasite that Scuds get actually, and they can get infected with this orange parasite, and I tie it with a hotspot. I also tie it without a hotspot, but if you look on Instagram, you'll see tons of people tying the infected Gammarus Scud. And that's what that is right there. People also say it's an egg sac, but I'm pretty sure it is a parasite from what I've looked at online. But where I'm going to take this shortly here has tons of those Scuds with that parasite, so that's why I tie it with the hot spot. It makes a big difference, I think. And then I use this resin that I normally don't use. This is Solares Medium. This is a big old bottle. I have a little bottle, but for this, you do put a pretty big squeeze on the top, so either way, it's pretty easy to tie. You need a little brush to brush it out, but it's pretty easy, and if you've never tied a Scud before, it's kind of fun. Here's the other color I like to tie it in. This is gray. It still has the hot spot, but you can see it's got a little antenna here, and then it's got a little tail back here, and I like to tie these in size 10 through 14. I don't go down to 16. I don't want to drive myself nuts, but I do tie a wide range of sizes, but one of my favorite spring creeks has very large Scuds, so I tie them about this size. It's about the size of a dime. Okay, so starting off, we're just going to start our thread. This is Semperfli Nano Silk in brown. It doesn't really matter what color you use, but the brown's fairly natural. And when I flip back and forth between olive and gray Scuds, it's a good neutral color that works for both. So we're going to want to start our thread and not have it slip off like that. We're going to trim our tag, and we're going to start by putting in the antenna and the tail. And so this stuff is really stringy, and so what I like about this fly is it's really simple. It uses pretty much just one material for most of it. For the body, for the legs, antenna, and body, it's all this stuff, and then you put a little bit of Scud back and wire on it. So what you can do is if you take some of it like this and you kind of start working with it, you get these long fibers that work great for the antennas, the antenna and the tail. So now I've got like a long thing here, and if I tie it into the front like this, We've got one side down here, and then we bring this side to the other side. And if you have to do it in two different ones, you can. But I do like to bring this down all the way. If you don't bring it down very far on the hook, the scud looks very flat. So to give it that real curved look, you definitely need to bring it further down the shank. And just be mindful that when you're fighting fish too, is you have limited space because you ate up a little bit of the shank. And so we can kind of make that look nicer after I'm just getting it out of my way. Next, what we're going to do is take uni extra small soft wire in silver neon, they call it. And we're going to tie that onto the top here and bring that all the way back. And tying it on the top allows us to build a little bit of height on this scud, like so. If you were to put lead, you would run it across the top like this too, and kind of balance it on the top. And then we're going to put some hairline 1/8 inch scud back in tan, and that'll just help make resining easy. You can skip this step, but the resin doesn't turn out as good. And if you don't want to use resin, you can skip this step also. You can use this instead of resin. However, I think it looks much better with the resin back. So what we're going to do now is we are going to tie a little bit of this in right on the top and leave it off the back. If you have a vise with a material clip, really nice to be able to just stretch the scud back right off the back and keep it out of your hair, like so. You can just stretch it into this spring. A lot of vices have it. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to start putting on generous amounts of this stuff. You're going to look at what I'm doing and you're going to be like, whoa, that is a lot of material, and that is what you want to do. And the other beauty of having a vise like mine is for these hooks like this, I can actually bend this and make tying on scud hooks easier. So now I have all this open space here. So having a vise with a joint like that makes tying these hooks really easy. That's part of the reason I actually got this vise, was for tying on these curved scud hooks. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try to build a taper. It's going to be smaller towards the back and bigger until we get to the top where it's infected. If we break this up into 3 parts, like butt, middle, back, or I guess this would be the head because they swim backwards. Either way, you have the front, middle, back. Here, I don't necessarily want the hot spot right in the middle. I want it a little bit closer to here. That looks a little bit more natural with how scuds swim. And what we're going to do is we're going to just build this up just a little bit. And if you don't build it up enough, you're going to think it looks like a lot, but then when you end up brushing the fly out, you lose a lot of the bulk. So even though it looks bulky, you are going to lose some of that as you brush this material out. And you can see I'm creating a taper here that will give it that natural scud look too. And the more that I can pack on here, the better this fly is going to look. And you can do it kind of loose, that's okay. As long as you can pick it out, that's the big deal. So we're going to take the same type of dubbing in fluorescent orange. We're going to put just a tiny little bit on. And this is a change that I've made in my newest version of it, and it allows this hot spot to pop even more. And so what we're going to do is you're going to pack this in really tight right here, just a little spot of it, and we're going to take fluorofiber. This is something that I haven't done in the past, but it is going to make a huge difference. I can already tell comparing it to my last ones, this little bit of fluorofiber in that infected zone makes the fly pop a whole lot more in that hot spot. Meaning if fish are looking for a little orange scud with an orange spot swimming around, they're going to be able to see it a lot easier. It also will catch the sunlight and just pop like crazy. I will show you what it looks like with the UV torch in a sec. But we're going to add just a little bit more here because I didn't quite have enough. And now what we're going to do is we're going to palmer this all around. So I suppose you can use any color of this floral fiber for this part, or I'm sorry, of dubbing below, but you are going to need the orange because we do put a little layer of orange over this floral fiber after. And that helps, the colors will actually shine through the dubbing when it gets wet. And this little base of this ultra bright orange is really what makes it pop. So we're going to take a little bit more of this orange, like I said, and just do a quick little layer right over the top. Just like this. And if you made it a little bit too big, like this spot is a little bit big for me right now, so I'm just going to kind of mash that down, and then I'll have more space to work with this olive. And then now we're going to do that taper reverse. We're going to make it fat towards the middle here, and then taper it down towards the head. And you can see we've got a little bit of a taper here now. And that looks good to me. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull this scud back over. We're going to pinch it in right behind the eye. And you can have it loose and then tighten it up after. Sometimes it's tough to get it to grab. But if you kind of pinch it down with your finger, you can control it a little bit better. There we go. And then now, since I'm not working in the back there, I can move my vise up a little bit. And now what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this wire all the way up this whole thing. And you may need to kind of make sure your scud back isn't moving around a whole lot. And you're going to want to take a bunch of extra wraps to make sure it doesn't pop off like that. And then you can tighten it up by pulling on it. But what we're going to do is as you palmer, the scud back is going to want to push out towards you guys, towards the camera. So you're just going to want to control that. And then when you get to this orange spot, you're going to make your wrap under it. You don't want to put a wrap on top of that. And so once you segment the body, you see this scud has a real nice segmented exoskeleton on it. And we'll trim the wire right there, and then we will stretch this scud back, and then we'll whip finish, and then we'll glue it up, and then you'll have an awesome scud to go crush big fish with. So what we're going to do now is you're going to have to kind of pick some of this out. Depending on your brush, you might be able to brush it out, but a lot of times you're going to have to pick a little bit of it to really get the legs to start kicking out, which is totally normal. If you dubbed it good. It's like a fine balance between dubbing it loose enough to get it out, but if you dub it too loose, it ends up looking really bad. So you're often going to have to pick a bit. But once you start picking some of it out, it'll be a lot easier to brush. So as long as you get a couple of those fibers started with your bodkin, it's going to be a lot easier just to brush it all out and get all those scud legs out. And you don't want to pick too much of the orange. You can pick a little bit, but not a ton. I don't like to pick a ton because the parasite is not coming out into the scud's legs. That's just for the middle. But if you're lacking in legs in that middle area, you totally can do that. So now that we've got all these legs, we can just brush them out. You see now we've got super leggy scud. I like to just trim it with the hook gap right there. And then the key to gluing this well is to trim any stragglers that may mess with your glue on the top right up here. And if you can, it's all taken care of. And now what we're going to do is we're going to glue the back. So you're going to put a big old glob of UV resin on it. And this is the medium. You don't want to use bone dry on this. It's not going to work. You're going to have to put a million layers on if you go that route. So you're going to just guide it, and to make it look the best, you're going to have to make sure it reaches down on both sides. You can see this side's lacking, that side has more. So I'm going to let it naturally work down with gravity real quick. So what we're going to do is you're going to want to help the resin over, but now you can see it's even on both sides. Gravity helped push it, and so both sides the shell is even, and it comes down to the legs, which is what you want to see. And once it's like that, I like to just let it rest upside down a bit, and then that gives the shell a little bit of height. Naturally it'll pool down and come to a point here, and then we will hit it with the torch. This definitely doesn't cure as quickly as bone dry, so just give it a sec. But now you've got a pretty awesome scud. We're going to have to trim up the antenna and the tail, but this is my secret scud that I have not shown for years. And now you can go catch big fish on it like I do. There we go, got it. And then we'll thin out this antenna back here a little bit, and then I guess that's the tail, and then here on this antenna, this is way too long, and then you're gonna, if you make long ways cuts with it, you can trim it down a little bit. And there, you've got a pretty sweet little scud. You can get all the stuff and more online at caddisflyshop.com.